This week's I Am statement is part of a long conversation with Jesus and his disciples in his last Passover meal before his death. During this time, Jesus decides to wash each of his disciples' feet, which was met with strong opposition by his disciples. It was a shock to have their leader get down on his knees to serve them in this way, and was against the customs and traditions of their time. I grew up in a church tradition that celebrated the Passover meal every year, which included feet washing. I remember the first time I took part in it, and I remember the awkwardness of this practice. I remember feeling shy about having my feet washed by another person, and I remember this sense of being vulnerable. And I felt just as awkward washing someone else's feet and needing to treat them carefully. It was a weird yet intimate and vulnerable moment. After Jesus washes his disciples' feet, he says that he's given them an example to follow, and he gives them a new command: love one another as I have loved you. This conversation continues, and he tells his disciples that he'll soon be leaving them. This is followed by questions from his disciples. Where are you going? How can we know where it is that you're going? Jesus responds with, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. I am the way, the truth, and the life. He goes on to explain that if you know him, you know the Father. In reflecting on Jesus as the way, I look back on the example that he gave to his disciples in the act of washing their feet. His example is not one of leadership that lords power over others through force, but his example is one of vulnerability and servanthood. This Jesus way is a challenge to us where the dominant culture encourages us to place our identity in positions of power and status to get our own way and to look after our own interests. But the Jesus way is one where you give up your life to serve the least among you. In this season of Lent, I encourage you to reflect on your life and whether it's marked by this same love that Jesus showed us. This way of Jesus, this way of the Father, God and love in action in our world. Do we keep pressing on, step by step, trusting not in the ways of our dominant culture, but in the way of Jesus, marked by love, vulnerability, and truth? And that this way ultimately wins and is ultimately what life is about. So that maybe, just maybe, other people will follow Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life by how we, his disciples, love one another and wash each other's feet.